Stay tuned. The media is making a freak into a prince. He turned himself into a sideshow freak. But now the media is enforcing a national amnesia over his madness. Even the president, who had 2 young daughters and should know better, is praising Jackson. Mr. President, please stick to politics and stop praising madmen. Al Frankenstein has finally been sworn in as a so-called senator. What a spectacle on the floor of the Senate. Biden read the oath, and there were several minutes of sustained applause from a comedy club to the ultimate comedy club of the United States Senate. Welcome, Al Frankenstein. We also talked about Night of the Dying Fox. Last night I told you a story. About something that happened to me last night about midnight. A rabid fox came onto our property after it was hit by a car, and the authorities called us to tell us about it. All night long afterwards, I heard its fox mother barking out its laments into the dark night, calling for its young baby fox. Frankly, it was heartbreaking to listen to the mother fox calling for her baby, who had been taken away to be euthanized. Even a rabid fox provoked more emotion in me than the death of Michael Jackson. The Michael Jackson Memorial. The demented coverage of the Michael Jackson Memorial happens to be one of the worst media spectacles in my memory. All day long, empty skirts and empty suits flying, giddy in anticipation of the funeral of this singer. First, all the cameras were focused on the cemetery, Forest Lawn. Then all the cameras were focused on the hearse driving to the memorial. And all the while, an endless stream of babble and chatter went on in the background. Let's listen in.
I want to point to our audience, the motorcade now is moving in motion. You can see there with your own eyes.
Just a few minutes from now, we do expect that the family will be arriving and the world will witness the memorial service for Michael Jackson.
You'll see the motorcade is just starting to get underway.
I'm assuming that one of the vehicles you're looking at, this hearse, is carrying the casket of Michael Jackson.
As we look at the hearse leaving the scene, the casket is in the hearse.
The hearse, that is, looks like it to be the 4th car in the motorcade.
And we're watching as that hearse pulls away.
We've been able to confirm that the casket will be at the Staples Center. And I say casket because it is not clear if Michael Jackson's remains will actually be in there. So we have to be careful with our language in painting the story of what is happening here.
The hearse carrying the body of Michael Jackson,
covered with flowers,
to what will be a celebration of his life.
The motorcade, hearse,
motorcade,
hearse,
the hearse,
casket,
hearse,
casket,
motorcade,
casket,
the hearse.
The hearse, the coffin, the tires, the road. It was like OJ all over again. On and on and on. It would have been one thing if this had been a president or someone significant. But Michael Jackson was only a singer, and not a great one at that. Throughout the course of musical history, there have been great composers. Jackson was not one of them. Here, listen to some of their works and his work side by side. You'll hear greatness next to less than mediocrity. Play it. That's real music. The last one is from Aaron Copland, a great American composer. Now, it happens that he was both a homosexual and a communist, but that has nothing to do with the fact that he was able to compose great music. In the same way, Michael Jackson, though he was a demented public figure, he made music that was not very good. The music was just not very good. Children liked it. But let's get back to the media coverage. Here's one of the morons on MSNBC talking about what the atmosphere at the memorial will be like.
I think it's just going to be a very interesting day to see what the atmosphere is like inside. Is it going to be like a concert? Is there going to be applause? Is the applause appropriate? You just don't know how to feel, and I'm curious to see what all the reaction is going to be. It's just a very interesting atmosphere here. I don't mean disrespect at all, but it's almost like a circus-type atmosphere. It's, people are selling Michael Jackson memorabilia. They're selling the T-shirts. It's just I don't know how to describe it other than odd. So I'm very curious to see what it's going to be like inside and how it's going to unfold and what the family's reaction is going to be. I'll be watching them during the service.
And as you've seen, Al Sharpton has swooped down on all these proceedings like the vulture that he apparently is. The media idiots were even talking about what a boost this funeral is for Sharptongue's career and the rivalry between him and Jesse Jackson. You're not going to believe your ears. Listen to this one.
We talk about Reverend Sharpton doing the official eulogy, not Reverend Jackson. A very interesting sort of generational shift I see there, sort of the unofficial title of #1 black reverend in black America, shifting there from Jackson to Sharpton.
And then came the memorial itself. 3 hours of pabulum and bad music and preaching from Sharptongue. Frankly, it makes me long for the dyslectic speeches of George Bush. Now, I'm going to tell you a story, and it's going to relate to this in a way. Last night, I was getting ready for bed around midnight, and I got a call from the police saying that a wild fox had been hit by a car running across the road, and it wandered onto my property, and it was injured, and they were going to send animal control over. So I said, all right. Wait 20, 30 minutes. Police show up. Animal control. They go around the property with a flashlight. I come out. There are a lot of these animals are rabid. And I see this poor little thin baby fox about the size of my poodle, scared to death in a cage. They had found it. And I asked the animal control officer about it. She said, well, his hind legs don't work anymore. And we're going to take it in and we're going to look at it, but we're probably going to euthanize it. I mean, it looked like a pet, gorgeous animal. Big eyes, elegant creature. I said, well, why do you have to euthanize it? She said, well, because most wild foxes are rabid around here. I didn't say anything because it's really not my call. It's their call. And I went back to my house, and I listened to the mother fox crying all night. She was barking and crying for her cub, crying for her baby that had been taken away in the van by the animal control officer. I heard the mother calling for hours and hours. Apparently, they both ran across the road, but the baby was not as swift as the mother. The baby got hit on the hind. The mother made it into the bushes, and apparently the baby limped along with broken hips or a broken back and lay there in the bushes till they found it. But I got to tell you something. As that mother cried for her baby cub, something in me understood the call of the wild, and I felt more sympathy for that dead fox. I felt more sympathy for the death of one rabid fox than for the death of Michael Jackson.
The Wall Street Journal this morning, weekdays 5 to 6 a.m. on Talk 910 KNEW.
Time magazine reported that in the 1970s, marijuana became the most widely accepted illegal indulgence since drinking had been banned during Prohibition. I have talked about how pot use and the insanity of liberalism often go hand in hand. Now, one of the most notorious traffickers in the 70s was named Jimmy Moree, better known by his nickname Jimmy Devine. The story of Jimmy Devine is a bizarre journey told in a new book entitled Weed Man. Joining us now to talk about the story is the author, John McCaslin.
Thank you, Michael. It's great to be with you.
Well, who was this pot smuggler, Jimmy Devine?
Well, I had no idea who Jimmy Devine was probably 2 years ago. And, of course, I work in Washington. I write a political column, so this is not my usual beat. But I was down in the Bahamas. My brother and I have a tiny house on a tiny island. It's a very old place that around 1700. It's the oldest settlement in the Bahamas, and it's a 1/4 mile wide by 3 miles long, this island. You have to get to it by boat. So we have this house, and one day the baker on the island picked me up in the golf cart. There's very few cars or trucks on this island, and he drove me up to the beach to meet two of the locals. It was a husband and a wife. She was Canadian. And it was just a get acquainted, meet your neighbor type thing, and I went in and I listened to the most incredible stories that are all in the book now, told by Jimmy Moree, whose nickname is Jimmy Devine. And I realized after 2 hours of listening to these stories that he had never told me what he had done for a living to have experienced these incredible, hilarious things. And so I asked him, and he looked at his wife, and he said, should I tell him? And he went ahead and explained, and I since corroborated that he used to be, for just about a dozen years, the biggest marijuana trafficker between Colombia and the United States. He would take all the drugs through the Bahamas and into Fort Lauderdale mostly, where they had a compound set up, and